Rioters rallied outside a number of U.S. embassies and consulates. We've been showing you that on Fox all day. The most violent appears to have been in the Sudanese capital of Khartoum, where 3 people died. Several of those rioters briefly managed to get inside the U.S. and German embassy compounds until police used tear gas and batons to disperse a crowd numbered in thousands. We've learned Vice President Biden called the Sudanese vice president to express his concern for the security at the embassy. And as we've reported, a Marine fast team is now on its way there. And in Tripoli, Lebanon, a crowd of rioters destroyed a KFC and Hardee's restaurant, then set the place on fire. It happened just as the Pope was arriving in Lebanon for a 3-day visit. Of course, the protest began in Cairo on Tuesday, when crowds scaled the walls of our U.S. embassy and tore up the compound's American flag there. The Fox Report's chief correspondent Jonathan Hunt live with more on this. And Jonathan, Egypt playing a crucial role in all of this.
Yeah, Egypt is the center of the Arab world. It is, after all, where these street protests began earlier this week. But it's interesting to note that the crowds today, and as you take a live look at here, it is plainly obvious, while they have still been violent, are much smaller than they were earlier in the week. And they have been kept away from the U.S. Embassy by Egyptian security services. All of this coming after President Morsi, as Wendell Gola said, spoke to President Obama on the phone, and then the Egyptian president went on national television to appeal for calm. Listen.
Talking of what happened some days ago as a result of offending our Prophet Muhammad, I should say that people from Egypt reject these kind of acts. And people from all over the world, also in Europe and the United States, refuse this kind of violence.
And, of course, President Obama repeated earlier today that leaders of all of these countries in which these protests are taking place have an obligation to help protect U.S. embassies and U.S. personnel, Harris.
And we've seen these protests pop up all over the region now.
Yeah, from North Africa to the Middle East to Central and Southeast Asia. Some of the worst violence we saw today was actually in Tunisia, which is often referred to as the birthplace of the Arab Spring. Many violent incidents there, but again, Tunisian police were key in beating back those protesters. A similar situation in Yemen. We saw a lot of violence there yesterday and again today, but again, Yemeni security forces at the forefront turning the protesters back. Now, we're also hearing from the State Department tonight, Harris, that all embassy staff in all of these locations are accounted for. It's also worth noting that while the number of locations has actually multiplied, the number of protesters has been much smaller. And nobody will say this out loud, but there is a quiet hope among officials that maybe the worst has passed, at least in terms of these street protests, Harris.
Well, and you gave us another ray of good news there. All U.S. personnel accounted for. Jonathan Hunt, thank you very much. Another